Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin and on this channel I upload all sorts of different types of videos relating to true crime, education and psychology related topics. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy and you haven't already subscribed, then please do so and don't forget to turn on the little notification bell so you know whenever I upload a new video. Today I'm back with another psychology video which I haven't done in a little while. I know some of you are here more for the true crime content and then others of you do also really enjoy the psychology ones, so I thought I'd still, chuck in the odd one here and there. And for today's video, we're going to be discussing another sort of field within the personality branch in psychology. And this one is particularly interesting, in my opinion anyway, because we are talking about personality disorders. So things that are deemed out of the ordinary for the typical types of personality, which if you haven't already seen my other videos, I will leave them down below explaining different categories of personality types. Before we get into it, I am just going to zoom through my normal disclaimer, just where I like to let you guys know, especially in my psychology videos, that I'm not claiming to be an expert in whatever I discuss in any of the videos on my channel. I do always say I do have a psychology degree, but I do not think in any way that makes me a qualified psychologist. I'm simply covering the basic understanding and introduction of topics based off of my own knowledge of something through studying my degree, as well as further research on the internet. And as with the case with psychology sort of topics and fields within psychology, there will always be differing opinions and further research to go, so things could change entirely. What we believe in psychology is one thing, it could eventually change because of new pieces of research. So what I'm going to be going through today is just a very basic understanding. There is so much more research that can be done into different factors that I'm going to talk about today, but I just sort of wanted to give an introduction into the different types of personality disorders and sort of what goes into them. So yes, without further ado, let's just get started. So we're just going to begin discussing very briefly what a personality disorder is in a very vague sense. So if you've watched any of my previous videos on personality types, you know that there's a lot that goes into establishing these different types of personalities and how they can be classified. And like I said, I will leave those videos linked below. But for today's video, we're going to be discussing something known as personality disorders, and a definition that I found on psychiatry.org defines personality as being long-term patterns of behaviour and inner experiences that differ significantly from what is expected. And experiencing a personality disorder can affect not only the way that you think about yourself and other people, but also the way that you control your emotional responses and your behaviours and your ability to sort of relate to others as well. So there are 10 different types of personality disorders that fit into sort of 3 categories, which allow professionals to be able to approach a form of diagnosis. These 3 categories that personality disorders will fall under have different names. So in some cases they're listed as suspicious, emotional and impulsive and anxious categories, also referred to the 3 clusters, which are A, B and C. So I'll begin with the suspicious category, which is also sometimes referred to as the odd or eccentric disorders, or cluster A, and which disorders fall into this grouping. But please do, like I said at the start, bear in mind that these descriptions of these personality disorders I'm going to go through are very basic summaries of them. There is obviously a lot more that goes into the diagnosis of them. So the first personality disorder that I'm going to cover that falls under this cluster A category is paranoid personality disorder. According to Mind's page that is dedicated to providing information on each of these disorders, it states that the thoughts, feelings and experiences linked with paranoia can lead to the individual having difficulty confiding in people, even those that are extremely close to you. It may be particularly difficult for these individuals to trust others in the belief that they are attempting to take advantage of them, and the individuals will likely see danger or threats in day-to-day situations that others wouldn't find threatening. The next disorder is schizoid personality disorder, which does differ from schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder in the sense that the psychotic symptoms aren't usually experienced by the individuals with the personality disorder. Those with schizoid personality disorder do usually function well in day-to-day life. However, they may find it a struggle to form sort of close relationships with others, as well as finding it difficult to relate to them emotionally. These individuals will most likely prefer to be left alone with their thoughts and don't find enjoyment in any activities or any form of intimacy with another person. In short, these individuals will often prefer to live their life without other people having any direct involvement. And the third disorder that falls under this suspicious or cluster A category is schizotypal personality disorder. A diagnosis of schizotypal personality disorder may be given when your recurrent patterns of thinking and your subsequent actions make it consistently difficult for you to relate to other people. Those diagnosed with schizotypal personality disorder may experience what are described as distorted thoughts or perceptions of certain things, as well as experiencing difficulty forming close relationships. Others may find the way in which they think and express themselves as being strange in terms of the words they use and how they go about explaining themselves, and it makes it difficult for others to relate to them. Individuals with this personality disorder may believe that they have a form of sixth sense which allows them to read the minds of other people, and they feel tense when others don't act in agreement of these beliefs. In addition to this, they can often feel very paranoid or overly anxious in social situations because of this difficulty relating to others. Now, in some cases, the next personality disorder, which is antisocial personality disorder, falls into the cluster A category, while in others it's categorized under cluster B. So I'm going to mention it here between the two just because of the different opinions, which I will explain a little bit later on. So Mind initially begins the definition of antisocial personality disorder by stating that it is entirely normal and natural to sometimes put your own needs before others, but if these actions occur regularly and impact certain elements of your life, it could lead to a diagnosis of this personality disorder. Individuals experiencing this may often put themselves in situations which are potentially dangerous to them, and as a result they may themselves behave dangerously or even illegally. Their behaviour may be deemed as unpleasant by others, and they can often act on impulse out of boredom. And them acting on impulse means that they may have a tendency to act out aggressively, and they may act in a way that means others suffer as a result of this impulse of putting their own desires above others. It's often found that these individuals won't typically feel guilt if others' lives have been affected negatively by their own behaviours and they're lacking in empathy. They may have also received a diagnosis before the age of 50 of some kind of conduct disorder, meaning they are experiencing a condition characterised by hostile and potentially violent behaviour with a lack of regard for others. And in a lot of sources, people often refer to this as sort of a sociopathic personality disorder, but that is up for discussion. Moving on to cluster B, which is the emotional and impulsive categorisation of personality disorders, and in some cases it's also referred to as the dramatic and erratic category. So starting with histrionic personality disorder. This disorder would lead to the individual having dramatic outbursts that are usually entirely unpredictable. But something that is often found to be the case with these individuals is that the outburst will often occur as a means of them gaining the attention of others. They may also have a tendency to feel overly strongly towards relationships and looking into them a bit too much. So, for example, feeling as though their relationship with someone is particularly deep while others do not view it as the same. The individuals who are diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder will have erratic emotions that change rapidly and, like I said, in dramatic outbursts. Their emotions and behaviours will likely be very strongly impacted and influenced by the people around them. They rely on the opinion and the approval of other people and feel uncomfortable if they are not in a situation where they are the centre of attention. The next personality disorder that falls under this category is borderline personality disorder, which is possibly one of the most commonly known personality disorders, and I believe it is also the most diagnosed personality disorder as well. Those with BPD will often experience a consistent fear or intense worry of being abandoned, and as a result they will likely respond in one of two extremes. So they'll either make it their mission to prevent this person from abandoning them, or they'll push them away entirely. They will likely experience very intense onsets of emotion that rapidly alter with no warning. They don't have a lot of confidence in who they are or where they want to be in life, and their feelings of such can change rapidly depending on who they're in the company of. It can be difficult for them to maintain stable relationships with others, and they may act rather impulsively and negatively affect themselves as a result. Individuals with BPD are found to be vulnerable to suicidal thoughts and signs of depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and even PTSD. And individuals diagnosed with BPD can react to stressful situations in multiple different ways, including experience paranoia, feeling numb and not recalling what has happened, or even experiencing psychotic experiences like seeing or hearing things that others haven't seen or heard. And the next personality disorder that falls under cluster B categorization is narcissistic personality disorder. Individuals with this form of personality disorder will consistently and regularly believe that they are more deserving or better than others. Their self-esteem is likely weakened, and as a result they rely on the words and actions of others to validate their own worth, meaning that they may be upset or feel cheated if they are ignored or aren't given what they believe they deserve from others. They may find themselves constantly resenting the successes other people are experiencing and not only put their own needs before others, but they also demand that others do the same as well. These individuals will likely be seen as arrogant or dismissive by others and may resent people of a higher authority or power to them. So moving on to cluster C, which is also referred to as the anxious category or the fearful and anxious category. The first personality disorder that falls under this umbrella is obsessive compulsive personality disorder, or OCPD. OCPD is entirely different from OCD, as OCD focuses on the diagnosis of the actions of the individuals rather than the personality. But the pair are considered similar in the sense that the individuals with OCPD feel a need for control in certain situations and are requiring perfection in some senses. So this means that they may set unrealistic expectations and standards for not only themselves but others as well, and they may remain rigid in their thinking and their approach to things in the belief that it is the right or the best way to go about things. If they aren't able to deem themselves as perfect in certain settings, they will experience great anxiety and worry about not only the mistakes they themselves could make, but also the potential mistakes of others. In short, they require everything to be in order or under a specific control, and this need for rules and order has the ability to negatively impact their relationship with other people. The next disorder is avoidant personality disorder. So individuals with this disorder are entirely afraid of any form of rejection or criticism directed at them, so in order to avoid this, they will go to extreme measures. So this could be avoiding social events or avoiding certain people or even milestones in the workplace. They experience this constant worry that the people around them will discover the true them and ultimately reject them for it, or shame or ridicule them. And because of this, they may avoid relationships with others entirely and as a result feel rather isolated and lonely. Finally is dependent personality disorder. Those with this particular disorder struggle to find a balance between being independent and being entirely dependent on other people. They may feel weak without the instruction or supervision of other people, and they may struggle to make day-to-day decisions without support. They can be deemed as needy by other people, and they will easily allow the people in their lives to take charge for the majority of areas in their life. They likely experience fear when considering the possibility of them being alone and having to face life by themselves, accompanied by low self-confidence and the belief that others are much more capable at everything than they are. It's found that these individuals may find themselves in situations where they cannot remove themselves, even if it is entirely possible, such as domestic abuse victims, simply because they view themselves as being entirely helpless if left alone. So in psychology, there are multiple forms of published classification systems that are used in different regions and fields, which means that there are slightly different diagnosis requirements for certain conditions. In the case of personality disorders, the two main classification systems of interest are the International Classification of Diseases, and the current edition of this is the ICD-11, and the other is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and the current edition is the DSM-5. In both of these, there are mostly matching diagnosis requirements, however there are some differences, which is why in some cases the personality disorders or the classification falls under different clusters and certain elements may be slightly different. So for example, one difference that is found is that in the ICD-10, which is the previous addition to the current one, narcissistic personality disorder does not fall under a specific category, and it also classifies what the DSM-5 diagnosis of schizotypal personality disorder as being a form of schizophrenia rather than a personality disorder. But for the most part, there are mostly similarities between the two, and the differences simply come from ongoing research and support for different approaches, which is the case across the field of psychology. In terms of a general personality disorder, each of the two diagnostic systems have a set of criteria, and I'll put up each of the lists of each of the criteria that each of the diagnostic systems require. There is a lot more to discuss in terms of the difference in approaches and opinions when it comes to the diagnostic systems, as it's really not black and white, but for the sake of this video being a basic introduction to personality disorders, I'll sort of leave this section here. There have also been a number of other personality disorders that were recorded in previous editions of the diagnostic systems that have either been deleted or have since been categorized by an already existing umbrella of personality disorder, likely because of just updated research. research. So for example, in the DSM-1, passive-aggressive personality disorder was added pending further research, which was then removed in the following publication of DSM-2, and then in the editions following met the criteria of dependent personality disorder. The concept of rating the severity of a personality disorder has been introduced as a means of representing the impact that it may have on an individual's life and the possibility of it being comorbid with other personality disorders, although this idea of rating the severity isn't always supported and again can differ within the field. The dimensional system of classifying personality disorders proposes the following system for rating the severity of a personality disorder. So the first point is 0, which is no personality disorder, and it's listed as they do not meet the actual or sub-threshold criteria for any personality disorder. Then it's 1, which is personality difficulty, and it meets the sub-threshold criteria for one or several personality disorders. Then for 2, it's simple personality disorder, and states that they meet actual criteria for one or more personality disorders within the same cluster. Then for 3, it's the complex or diffuse personality disorder, and they meet actual criteria for one or more personality disorders within more than one cluster. 4 is severe personality disorder, in which they meet the criteria for the creation of severe disruption to both individual and many in society. And there are so many research studies focusing on the links between personality disorders and the effects that it can have on the individual's life in many different ways. There's way too many to fit into this video, so if you would like me to do a follow-up video on any of these other pieces of research and linking it to other topics in psychology, then please do let me know down below. But that is where I'm going to end today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this interesting, and I'll see you guys very soon for another video. Thanks for watching. Bye.